And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery. I fucked it up already. This is not the monastery, this is the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have my resident waifu hunter of the monastery, good brother Coops.
You mess up less than SAO. Fuck SAO.
You know, I'd say I could write a better story, but oh wait, I already did. We did that. We did that a year ago.
Got him.
I still want to revisit that for some of the other arcs, or at the very least, revisit that for the Fairy Dance arc and reconstruct that. Oh, also, hi there, Key. How you doing? So, we are after our little impromptu episode covering Titan Effect, and I do have to put Titan Titan Effect 0 as a feather in my cap, because I ended up getting confirmation that I was partially responsible for it, for the year 0 engine being the one that got picked. But we are back finally with our continued look at Devil City Tokyo 2000X. I can't use the full name because if I use the full name, I'm gonna get hit by YouTube for character limits. They have a 100 character limit on titles. I guess to prevent people from having titles that are short essays.
YouTube, do better.
At least give me 140. Like Twitter's old character limit.
I'll at least have that.
Mm-hmm.
There should at least be 200, in my opinion.
Yeah. But last time around, we tackled the character creation, and it's an interesting contrast between that and Tokyo Conception. It is far more human-friendly in this case. And I'd say, especially given a far more expanded class system that, well, actually feels like a class system. The classes in Tokyo Conception are more like archetypes. But going right along from that, this time around we're going to be handling the rules proper, and some of the rules that we'll be tackling I've kind of hinted at when I covered Tokyo Conception on Friday, but obviously there's going to be some differences. And though one of the things that isn't going to be all that different is the core stats as we see here, which represent the 5 stats that you excel in. Strength, for physical combat. Magic, capacity for spells. Vitality, physical resilience. Agility, speed and dexterity. And luck, for things not covered in the above 4 stats. Things like conversation, luck checks, and surprise checks, as well as how you calculate fate points. A lot of these kind of stats are going to be familiar to you if you've played an RPG for more than 5 minutes. But the core mechanic is going to be a D100 approach. So you're going to be breaking out 2 D10s because nobody's using a 100-sided die at my table.
The size of a fucking golf ball, people!
If you want a golf ball, go to the driving range. They've got plenty. Or use the trackball in those Golden Tee arcade games that were in every bar that I ever went to for decades.
You know, Arcade 1-Up has their own version of the Golden Tee arcade cabinet.
Is it still golfing with a trackball, or is it like some swing simulation?
It still has the trackball.
Oh.
It still has the trackball.
So I can still watch people cry out in despair when they overswing on putting.
Correct.
Or get beached. I know way too much about golf to the point where anytime somebody hits beach or hits water, I cringe. Because I know what they're in for. Worst ones are those ones that have got beached and then have like a wall of dirt around it, so it's like a big pot.
Yeah, they're the one they have is currently 10% off, only $459 at your local Best Buy or Amazon or Walmart, wherever you can find it.
Yeah. But after going into the dice used, which sometimes you will be using a straight D10, but much like with Sword World, the kind of die you're going to be using is not going to change all that much. You're either going to be using 1d10 or 2d10. That's pretty much it. You know, like much how back in Sword World I had told you guys This D6, this is all you're using. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using 2d6. That's it. And it's a similar principle here. The only difference is that this is a percentile-based system. And for those who are less familiar, percentile it is a certain percent out of 100 to hit. So you're trying to get under that. Now, your core stats determine the target number for the checks associated with those stats. It is that stat times 5 plus level plus any relevant modifiers. And so because of that, if you've got, say, a 20% on something, you're rolling 2d10, one's the 10s die, one's the 1s die, you're looking to get under 20.
Ooh.
And of course, if you get 2 zeros, that's a 100, and you don't want that.
Nope.
Also, thank you, Twins Play Egg, for joining the temple. I hope you enjoy the shenanigans that happen around here. So, and good evening to you as well. We're doing good, just going through SMTX. But there are some special results with that die roll. If you roll a 1, that's a critical, automatic success. You roll a 96 or 99, it's an automatic failure. You roll a 100, it is a fumble, regardless of the target number. So not only did you fail, you made it worse.
Damn.
That being said, we also have a thing on criticals. If it's less than or equal to 1/10 of the target number, a critical is scored. But if you possess the might skill, it can be done at 1/5 or less instead. Now, criticals usually just double the power, which is the power is going to be the base damage for physical or magical attacks. But they also bypass defense. So, double damage and you're fucking over their armor. I'd say that balances out how hard it's going to be to get a crit in this system, because it's either 1/10 or 1. So you've got at most, if you're really lucky, a 10% chance. Most of the time, you're going to have just a 1 to 5.
That's it, just 10%?
For dealing double damage and ignoring defense, yeah.
Damn.
By defense, I mean ignoring damage reduction. So armor and all that.
Right, I get that. I get that.
That's why I'm fine with it being that low, because of the fact that due to how power works, that can scale up very quickly.
I honestly thought it would be higher.
And as far as fumbles, if you get that, there are a few extra things that can happen. If you fumble while attempting to hit, you hit yourself or an ally. If you fumble a dodge check, the attack that you were attempting to dodge critically hits you. If you fumble a conversation check, since you know demon conversation is part of SMT's DNA, the target becomes furious, right. Combat starts, and they get a plus 1d10 to initiative. If you fumble a recovery check, no recovery occurs, and HP and MP are halved. Or, in some cases, something else bad can happen. But then we have skill usage. And skills are the special abilities possessed by a character. This is meant to be skills as in abilities, though some are passive. So think of them akin to the skills you see in the SMT games or moves that you would see in Pokemon. It's just you have more than 4 moves.
Right.
I know that the moveset has been expanded in later gens, but I'm still going to make that joke. But the passives are, well, passive. They're always active. Whereas non-passives, the approach is you declare the skill to be used, you declare the targets, pay the cost, usually MP, roll the check that it asks for. If successful, determine the power, then apply the effects. If there's no appropriate targets, then you just wasted the skill. Some skills have a once per scenario kind of rule, which is brought up by a checkbox for their particular skill. Now, power is used to measure the potency of attacks and skills, which is calculated by base power plus skill modifier plus the power roll. We kind of already covered base power when we did character creation last week. You know, melee power is strength plus level, range power is just agility, and spell power is magic plus level.
Right.
It is a bit odd that level isn't added to range power, but there's probably some modifiers when it comes to ranged attacks. So that's something we'll put a pin on for now. Now, when it comes to the power roll, it's basically a d10 that you're adding to the total power. But if you roll a 10, it explodes. And therefore, you roll it again and add it to the previous result. This is cumulative, so if you keep rolling 10s, you keep exploding until you roll something other than a 10. Now, obviously, the exception is buff and debuff skills. They don't explode on 10s. Now, some skills may require you to roll 2d10 instead of 1. In that kind of situation, the explosion rule only requires at least one of them to roll a 10. It's an individual affair. You don't need to have all of them show up as 10, because trying to do that on 2d10 would be hard. 3 or 4 or more would be ridiculous.
Even I'm not that lucky.
Yep. Obviously, skill modifiers are a bonus to power when using a skill. If you score a critical, you double the total power, and this is after the power roll. Sometimes the affinity of a skill can mess around with it. This is done after the multiplier from a critical. Affinity is where you have the elemental strengths and weaknesses, essentially.
Right.
Or if you want to skip the power roll for high level characters, just treat the result of the power dice as a 5. But then we have fate. I kind of touched upon this last time. Fate is akin...
I'm about to say, that was like the first things we talked about.
Yeah. Fate is an extra effort system. Apparently, I've been told that in earlier editions, it was far harder to get it back. But Fate is 1/5 of your luck plus 5. And when you use a Fate point, you can do one of the following. You can either re-roll a roll you made, so give yourself a do-over. Adjust one of your TNs plus or minus 20. Or reduce damage to yourself or an ally by half. Now, these effects can only be used immediately before or after a particular event. Once the game has progressed to the next step, it's not possible to rewind and apply them retroactively. So, no takebacks. It can be used cumulatively, but you're still paying each time you use it. And of course, if you so wish, you can spend 2 fate points to give an ally 1. Now, that's pretty standard affair for fate points. And when it comes to getting them back, it is usually at the end of a session. So there are some variations, but from what I've heard in earlier editions of the Mega 10 RPGs, you had a certain pool of fate at the start, and that's all you were getting, with rare exception.
Okay.
Which I understand the intent there, but it can lead to the 99 megalixirs problem.
Ugh.
I can't use one of my
Just
99...
hearing that makes me scream.
You know how it is, it's like, I can't use one of my 99 megalixirs, what if I need it for later? He says during the final boss of the whole campaign. Now, I will note, even though this is an adaptation of the Mega 10 games, there is one mechanic that did not transfer over from the video games, and I'm glad for it, because it would be a nightmare in tabletop. And that's the press turn system.
Oh, thank God.
For those who haven't played the games, press turn was or also known as one more in the Persona games, is granting you an extra action if you target someone's weakness. Now that works perfectly fine in the games, mostly until the times it screws you over, and it will screw you over.
It has a lot.
A little bit less so in the Persona games, but definitely in the Mega 10 games, it will find a way to screw you. But having that kind of rule in tabletop would be very easy to be completely frustrating. So instead, you have what's known as multi-action in both this and in Tokyo Conception. If your TN is 100% or higher, you can declare multi-action, which allows you to take the same action 2 or 3 times in a single turn. You cannot split it into 4 or more actions. When using skills, you must pay the cost for each action. You cannot change the skill or target during the process. If your original TN, after modifiers from buffs, assist, or focus, ranges from 100 to 199, you can perform 2 actions. If it's 200% or higher, you can perform 3. The TN for each action equals the original TN divided by the number of actions being taken. And of course, you cannot multi-action with counter skills. So this is the replacement for press turn. You know, once you start getting really good at that percentage, you can start splitting it to do multiple actions.
I can live with this.
It's a way to address what happens when you hit that 100% cap, so that you can still have the risk of success or failure. Otherwise, if you have like a 200% chance to hit, you're always gonna hit.
Right.
And this isn't, say, XCOM, where the percentage that it gives you is bullshit. You know, 98% chance to hit, point blank range, still miss.
I could name a few skills that fit that, and it never ends well for me every time I use it. Especially with that one skill from Persona 5 with Morgana.
When Morgana isn't telling you to go the fuck to sleep.
Bitch, I'm grown. Let me live a little.
Although I do appreciate that Morgana's voice actress did recorded herself reading "Go the fuck to sleep."
That will never not be funny.
But then we have automatic skills or multi-action skills are obviously incompatible. Um, though here's the nasty thing about it. If you are doing a multi-action and one of the actions gets countered, the other actions are completely canceled out. So say you were casting Bufu 3 times, and you get countered on the first one, well, you're not getting the other 2. So that's the risk.
Can't get greedy now.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you can use Fate on multi-action, but you have to use it individually. So if you spend a Fate point to add plus 20 to the TN, you have to do that with one of the rolls that you're doing for multi-action. Or you could spend it to raise it past 100 and then do multi-action that way. But after that is Scene BGM, which you could kind of consider a bit of guidance for different types of scene. Each one describing a danger level, a situation, an encounter, and recommended action. And of course, certain affinities can affect it. You could consider these ways to mix up particular scenes during play.
So what I'm reading here is we can essentially have like a whole bullet ballet depending on the danger level of each battle.
Yes.
Oh, get no bayonetta on. I love me a good bullet ballet.
And it's I'd say it's a way to mix things up beyond just the moon phase, which is going to be a presence, but it doesn't have to be the sole presence. But after that, we have combat and how combat scenes work. They're in rounds. That's going to be self-explanatory. But what I appreciate here, once again, as I kind of hinted at with Tokyo Conception, instead of trying to do grid combat, we have a front and back row system. Of course, at least half of the party's characters have to be in the front row. Characters who are dead are the exception. If the combat takes place in narrow passages, you may want, or something like that, you may opt to limit the number of characters who can be in the front row. And of course, characters can move between rows. So, the row thing, it's something that's been a staple, but it's not. But in some games, a little bit less so. Like in the last few core Mega 10 games, it hasn't been as prevalent as it was in the early days. In like pre Shin Megami Tensei and SMT 1 and 2, it was very much front and center, and a lot of the spin-offs it is as well.
Yep.
But obviously, the first thing to establish in combat is initiative, and this is no exception. Initiative is agility plus level divided by 2. And it does have its own power roll, which is rolled as a 1d10. Now, if you roll a surprise check and get a crit, you can get an additional plus 2d10. Or if you fumble it, then you don't get the power roll, and your initiative is just your base initiative. In the case of tied results, the tied characters roll 1d10 against each other. The one with the higher result goes first. If it's still a tie, keep rolling 1d10 until a winner is determined. I'm glad that there's that set up, because eventually there will be a winner. Unless you have two people who have ridiculously stupid levels of luck. Which, odds of two people having that kind of luck are slim. About as...
Unless you're Chugga Conroy, of course.
Yeah. Or, I think I told you about the two switch positions in that minor league game in New York.
Yeah.
I think what's hilarious about that is that, technically speaking, nobody was breaking any rules. But
yeah, there were no rules broken.
Then we have the type of actions, each of which consume, well, one action. These are the major ones. So, melee and ranged attack, self-explanatory. Magic attack, also self-explanatory. Support magic, which are support magic skills that are automatic. Conversation, so your attempt to converse with the demon to do negotiation. Assist, which is a luck check that, if you succeed, can give an ally's next action a 20% boost. Use an item. I like that they put in, this is automatically successful. As if somebody was worried that they might fumble in using an item.
Seriously, how the hell would you fumble using an item? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know, I've seen people be careless with grenades.
Butterfingers.
And of course, Brandon has the Darwin Awards for people being careless with firearms. But then there's pass an item, which is self-explanatory. Ready a weapon, where you're stowing one weapon and equipping another, or loading ammunition into a firearm. You cannot change armor during combat. I am glad that stowing a weapon and equipping another, as mentioned here, is all one action. I have seen some games that try and have the act of switching weapons to be two separate actions. One action to stow the weapon, another action to draw another one. It ends up discouraging people from using a variety of equipment in combat.
Good call there.
Let's see. And we have focus, which is akin to assist, but it's for yourself, and you don't have to do a check. Then move from the front row to the back row, or vice versa. Or solely dodge, so you're spending all your energy on trying to not get hit, in which case you're giving yourself a 20% bonus to dodge. Let's see, then minor actions. These are actions that do not consume your main action, but during a single turn you can't perform the same type of minor action more than once. And the ones that you have access to are demon summoning, self-explanatory. Demon transformation. Obviously, you'd need to have a transformation in order to do that. Toss an item, which is a luck check. This I can see needing a check because, you're tossing an item in the middle of combat. Drop an item, self-explanatory, and using either Beast Eye or Dragon Eye, which are specific skills. See, then we have reactions. The four that you have are dodge, cover, lucky, and counter. Dodge is self-explanatory. Cover is a skill where you can take attacks on behalf of someone else. Lucky, if you've learned it, can negate attacks directed at you, if you're lucky. And Counter just gives you a chance to counterattack when being attacked. I do like it says that counterattacks cannot be avoided nor countered. And of course, you can't multi-action with a counterattack.
Right.
After that, we get into attacks in a little bit more detail, but it covers stuff that we already have. You know, melee attack is going to use your strength TN, ranged is going to use your agility TN, magic is going to use your magic TN. And if you critically succeed, the effect is doubled, obviously. Regardless of which type of attack is used, they are countered with a dodge check. What I do like with dodge checks here, unlike with some games, is that there's no cap on how many times you can dodge. You are taking a risk every time you do attempt a dodge, but you can do it anytime you're being targeted with an attack. And after that, we have damage, which we already more or less covered. Most damage is going to be calculated by 1d10 plus the final power rating of whatever type of attack or skill you're using. And when it comes to affinity, which is next, we have 5 different types of affinity, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Resist is basically having damage. The BS percent is basically percent for bad status, percent for a debuff.
Yeah.
Null is, well, it doesn't do anything to you at all. Drain, it's your healing for the damage you would have taken. Repel cancels the damage and returns it to the attacker. It can't do this with bad status. And weak, damage and bad status percent is doubled. Now, bad status is the debuffs, and the approach that it's going with is there's no priority setup. You've either got it or you don't. So this is where we have things like stone, fly, which is not you're flying, it's you're turned into a fly.
Like a literal fly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, paralyze, charm, poison, close, basically seal, so you can't use magic. Bind, so you can't take any actions, including dodge. And melee and ranged attacks against you automatically crit. Freeze, you've been frozen today. Can't take any actions, melee and ranged attacks automatically crit. Physical damage from strike and gun attacks bypass resistance or any affinity and deal normal damage. And sleep, which is self-explanatory, but you can restore HP and MP each turn that you're asleep. Panic, when declaring an action, there is a 50% chance it will be replaced by a different abnormal action. Shock, can't take any actions. And happy, enveloped in euphoria, unwilling to act, unable to take major actions, but dodging is possible. And of course, dead is self-explanatory, and curse, you're inflicted by a curse. First things first, the automatic failure rate goes up to 86 or higher. And when attempting other actions, there is a 30% chance of taking an unfavorable action instead. And right after that, we have the order of priority when it comes to the different bad statuses, as well as the random effects that can happen from panic. I do like that one of them involves you panicking to the point where you throw your money at the enemy.
I think they did that in Persona 5 as well.
Now, bad status chance is pretty self-explanatory. It is the chance to get hit with that. The priority is just the order of priority when it comes to bad statuses. And with recovery, you can make a recovery check, usually your vitality TN. And if you succeed, you recover from bad status. Some of them you can't recover from in this way. Others, you automatically recover at the end of a battle. Beyond that, we have fleeing. So your attempt to run away, also known as pulling a King Arthur, or if I want to be more specific, pulling a Brave Sir Robin. And I had to get at least one Monty Python joke out of my system.
Glad it was that one.
But the other side can attempt to block the fleeing characters. If no one interferes, the attempt is automatically successful. Now, if you attempt to block escape, then the fleeing side has to attempt a dodge check. If there's more allies than enemies, a 20% bonus is applied to the check. If you fumble, the entire enemy group gets one melee attack against anyone who fumbles, and a counter cannot occur in response. And beyond that, we have surprise checks, which is roll for surprise. We already kind of covered that. And of course, after battles, you have the potential for item drops. After a battle, the representative from the surviving PCs makes a percentile roll. On a roll of 1, both the rare and loot items are obtained. On a 2 to 10, only the loot drops. A roll of 11 or higher yields no items. If any PC possesses the Lucky Find skill, they make a luck check instead of the above roll. If successful, loot is obtained. If a critical is scored, the rare item is also obtained. The number of rolls is determined by how many different types of demons were defeated. For example, defeating 1 zombie or 10 zombies results in 1 roll, but defeating 1 zombie and 1 zombie dog allows 2 rolls to be made. We kind of saw this with Sword World, though, if I'm being honest, I really think luck should be used as a modifier to these things, so it's not a straight percentile thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I know that there's the lucks there that you can use the luck check for this, but the odds of getting loot are a little bit too low, and the fact that it's a percentile no matter what your level is, that doesn't sit with me. And I understand why it's done in this, trying to emulate the source material, but I don't like it. Now that said, when winning a battle, you do gain Maka, or currency, equal to the total EXP you'd gain from the demons you defeated. We also have a thing on boss traits. So for monsters that you want to have as, well, bosses, since that is one of the phases in the flow of gameplay.
Right.
But right after that, we have conversation, which is going to be a key point. This has been a negotiating with demons to bring them to your side has been a key part of the setting and series for years. I'd actually say since the original Megami Tensei back on the Famicom. Although I do have to clarify, not the original by Telenet, because the first Megami Tensei, when Telenet had it, when it was on the PC Engine and the MSX, was more akin to Gauntlet than the dungeon crawl we would be familiar with. And I did post on social media a while back I wonder what kind of alternate universe would have happened if the Telenet version had caught on instead of the Atlas version.
I can only imagine a lot of confused people.
Well, people get confused anyway when you show them the wild directions that Megaten has gone over the years. But
As long as we tracking.
yeah. But in terms of the conversation and negotiation, those are the two parts of the conversation system. In conversation, the idea is to have a friendly conversation and garner a favor of +1 or higher. Once it's at that point, the scene can proceed to the negotiation part. Favor basically represents how much the other side of the conversation likes you, ranging from -1 to +3. If it would drop below -1, you increase tension instead. Now, tension indicates the emotional stress of the other party, represented by 3 levels: calm, easy, and enraged. Obviously, once it's at enraged, there's no more conversing. It would be like conversing with a bull charging at you. But the initial favor and tension start at 0, though the GM may adjust it if they wish to. But if a PC possesses a demon card or contract with the same demon as the partner, then initial favor is increased to 2. And that's important because favor of 2 adds a plus 20% bonus to negotiation. But when it comes to the partner's attitude, that's a D10 roll on the partner on the conversation attitude table. Now, as far as the response, there's obviously interrupting the conversation. You have the whole thing of valid keywords. So if you have a certain keyword, you can gain a plus 20 bonus, and it works vice versa. But the conversation check, which can be modified by attitude, is typically going to be a luck check, which is amusing because in some old school RPGs, whenever luck is used as a stat, it tends to be very hidden or is not all that obvious. Whereas here, having luck is going to be significantly helpful. Now, the negotiation part, this is where you'd give some sort of request. That being either information, maka, so money, an item, the demon card, the skill use, so have them use a non-attack skill once, a gem, which is only available when using Stone Hunt, or force them to leave. And then beyond that, we have a nice table for conversation attitudes, as well as the suggested behavior, the potential response that you can have, the effects of that response, some valid keywords, and the results of what happens if you pass or if you fail the check. Although if it's a full moon out, it's going to be harder to make this kind of check, obviously. But it's going to be easier if it's a new moon. I do like the nonsensical entry where it talks about ramble about a topic only they understand and seek your agreement. You can either play along or go against. If you go against it, you get plus 1d10 hee-ho. Now, as far as the tone of a conversation, and this is noted in the data for each demon, there's 3 pillars of it: personality, age, and gender. Personality can be personality types, or it can be association with certain factions, like Gaian or Messiah. But let me check something. Of course.
I like the he ho personality tone.
Mm-hmm. I knew. I told you it was going to be in there in some form. Because despite the mascot status and despite the troublemakers, a lot of people forget that Jack Frost and Jack-O-Lantern are fairy types because they're not really malicious, they're just childish.
Right.
I think that was emphasized the most in that weird Jack Bros game, which, as I've said in the past, is probably one of the better Virtual Boy games. But on the other hand, saying you're the best Virtual Boy game is like saying you're the best team on the best player on the worst team in a league.
Right.
It'd be like saying I'm the best racer for Haas in Formula 1. Haas is a bottom boy.
Got the fries in the bag, bro. Just admit you're trash.
But then we do have a bit on information gathering. And this is one way that the conversation check can be utilized that doesn't involve negotiation. It is mainly about getting info in a given scene. It is one of the early phases in the flow of play, as mentioned before. But then we have one of the big elephants in the room that's decided to crash on my couch. Fusion.
Oh, boy.
We're gonna have to get to this eventually, and this is one of those things that can either make or break this kind of game, and we'll definitely be revisiting this. So, in the Cathedral of Shadows, you can fuse 2 or 3 different demons to produce a new one. The resulting demon inherits the skills of the combined demons, referred to as material demons, and becomes a more powerful entity. Now, applicable demons are ones that are contracted by a summoner, ones that are sealed in Mystic Change weapons, ones contracted by outsiders, and demon PCs themselves. Only one type of non-card material demon can be used at a time. You also cannot fuse demons manifested in the real world, such as demon PCs. Additionally, you cannot fuse demons of the same name, i.e., you can't fuse 2 pixies, even if they have different skills. Then we have the Fuse ID, which is the identifier to determine the order of demons during fusion. For elements, the ID begins with an S, and for dark demons, it starts with a D. The first digits of the Fuse ID represents the demon's initial level, followed by a numeric code indicating the rank of their race. A1 is the highest, followed by A9, then B1, and so on, with C5 being the lowest. For dark demons, only numbers are used. If the Fuse ID is invalid, that demon cannot be used for fusion. Now, the first form is, of course, double fusion. Now, there's an intersection on the demon fusion table, which we will get to in a few pages, to determine the fused race. If there's a dash in the resulting race, fusion is not possible. Now, the temporary level is the total level of the material demons divided by 2 plus 3. The final fused demon is chosen from the resulting fused race, with the nearest level equal to or above the temporary level. For each material demon, you inherit and learn 1 plus material demon's level plus 10 of, or sorry, divided by 10 of their skills. And for various values, they can be adjusted after fusion. For demon PCs, adjust XP according to the level. For Mystic Change weapons, choose 1 skill from the final fused demon to apply as the Mystic skill. Mystic Change we'll get to when we get into the data proper.
Okay.
Now, things like unarmed attack are weapon attack and ranged attack are not inheritable because they're basic attacks. But having things like melee use or ranged use can allow them to use the ranged attack skill or melee skill, irrespectively. Another restriction is that when it comes to affinity change, only 1 affinity change skill can be inherited. On the other hand, if a skill is inherited multiple times or the final fused demon already possesses an inherited skill, it instead learns an enhanced skill targeting that one. There's also the fact that some fusions can rank a demon up or down. For a 1 rank up, the resulting demon is the one immediately before the material demon's entry in the listed data. We're not going to be getting into data until next week. For a rank down, it's 1 step after. But if one material demon is an element, a special fusion that ranks the other demon up or down to another of the same race occurs. This is going to be focused on the intersection of element. If the fusion result is 1 up, the other demon ranks up by 1. For 2 up, it ranks up by 2. For down, it ranks down by 1. And then there is the case of dark fusion, which is where you're introducing dark demons into the mix. The main thing that it can cause is either rejection, so roll on the fusion rejection table. This is how you get things like foul slime, or cannibalization. If the fusion table result is eat, the higher level demon absorbs the lower level one, resulting in a 1 rank up. If the levels are the same, the demon with the higher priority fuse ID ranks up. And of course, foul slime, it automatically is going to eat, just making a bigger slime. Which is why nobody likes foul slime.
I hate them bitches.
Mm-hmm. And you do have special fusions for IDs with a number. These are ones that are going to have particular titles, like Lady or Amatsu or Avatar. We have a few examples of those suffixes. For example, mixing Lady Durga and Megami Pravati results in Lady Kali. We also have Devilkin fusion, i.e. fusing a human and a demon, which was something you could do in SMT too, so it tracks. But in order for human PCs to be a part of it, you have to be level 40 or higher at Awakening Tier 2. As well, you also need a demon card of GP +5 or lower. So the really high-end stuff you can't fuse to make a Devilkin. And of course, if you really want to up the complexity, you can do triple fusion. Using 3 demons at once. At which point you check the fuse IDs to see if there's any element or dark. Arrange the demons in order: dark, normal, then element. Then fuse. And for each material demon, you inherit one skill for every 10 levels, obviously, and adjust stats accordingly. You are essentially doing double fusion and then adding one more to it. And right after that, there is a chart that unfortunately I have to rotate the view so that you all can see it.
Whoa.
So this is the fusion setup for double fusion. And it essentially determines what type of race you're getting from the two that you fuse. If there's a rank down, or a rank up, or if rejection happens. As well as a little guide about what reject, eat, 1 up, 2 up, and down are.
Yep.
And then we have a similar one for triple fusion. The first table for the first two that are fused, and then the second one for the third part, as well as the total. The temp level is the total level of material demons divided by 3 plus 4. Now, with that said, let me rotate this back. But the last thing is the cooldown phase. After the game ends, there's several things to do, namely, in what's known as the cooldown. The first is character assessment. Basically assess how someone handled their alignment. The alignments you have are Law, Chaos, Light, Dark, Neutral, and He-Ho. And the other thing to come out of this is based on how your behavior turned out, you can gain alignment points based on your alignment. And that more or less covers the core rules. I'd say the only complicated part is going to be fusion, but I think we knew from the word go that was going to be complicated.
Oh yeah, we've been now.
But what's your takeaway from the approach to that you see?
Definitely gives the same kind of vibes that I got from Sword World, which is a good thing because I think that was I know Everwind was the easiest to understand, but since we played Sword World, I can easily just pick it up and like, hey, I know how to do this, that, and the third, and everything. And also the amount of P-Ho, oh my god, I need a lot more.
I did say I was going to deliver when it came to He-Ho, so... But beyond that, when it comes to fusion, I know it's going to look daunting, and there's a lot that I skimmed over on it. But I don't think fusion is something you're going to be doing as frequently as you might have done in the video games.
Yeah, something like this, you're probably gonna do it at least about a good 3, maybe 4 times from what I can see. Possibly 3.
And I think it depends on how long the campaign is, but it should be a significantly large occasion when it is done. And I will note that because of the way the chart works, it's a lot easier than it could have been. And obviously we're operating with half of the information because there are some specific details with Fusion that we'll end up seeing once we get into the demons data specifically. But overall, I'd say the core mechanics are going to be pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of excessive crunch. The details that we have here are going to be easy to figure out. The only stumbling point that might happen is fusion, and depending on the kind of characters that you have or the kind of setup that you have, fusion may not even come up. Like if you're running a bunch of humans or human adjacent, you may not even do fusion.
Right.
I mean, some would say that fusion is too central to the experience, you have to do it, but there's nothing saying that's the actual case. But next time around, we will be getting to the data section, which that is going to contain more detail on the various skills and the various demons. This is a common thing with a lot of Japanese tabletop of backloading a lot of this. We kind of had this in the core books for Sword World, and we have it here. And we won't be getting into demon stat blocks because that'll be in 2 weeks. So I hope to see you all there. I will be back here on Thursday, continuing a look at the Gaia Complex with Brother Monarch. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Thank you.